2025 was a monumental year for archaeology. In the jungles of Ecuador, Lidar technology revealed ancient cities that had been hidden for millennia. In the steppes of Kazakhstan, declassified Cold War satellite images led to the discovery of a Bronze Age metropolis that rewrites our understanding of nomadic cultures. And in Jordan, beneath the most famous monument in Petra, archaeologists found a tomb that had remained sealed for over 2,000 years, combined with breakthroughs in DNA analysis, thermoluminescence, dating, and ground-penetrating radar. Researchers were able to study the past with a level of precision we've never had before, from lost cities mapped beneath jungle canopy to Roman shipwrecks discovered at impossible depths. From ghost lineages revealed in ancient DNA to sealed tombs opened for the first time in millennia. This year proved that the past is not a closed book. It's a living puzzle, constantly being reassembled as new pieces emerge. So settle in as we explore the 7 most groundbreaking discoveries of 2025. We have urban networks that rival ancient Rome, industrial superpowers that existed 3,500 years ago, and biological mysteries that add entirely new branches to the human family tree. Whether you're here to focus deeply, listening in the background, or letting this help you drift off to sleep, get comfortable. We have a lot to uncover. And before we begin, make sure to subscribe to Mystic Gateways. We upload investigations into ancient mysteries every single week, and you won't want to miss what's coming next. Now, let's start deep in the Amazon rainforest, where an entire civilization has just emerged from beneath the trees. Ecuador's hidden urban network deep in the foothills of the Andes in eastern Ecuador lies the Upano Valley. It's a region of dense vegetation and steep slopes that has long been difficult for archaeologists to survey on foot. For decades, researchers knew that ancient people had lived there, but the density of the forest made it impossible to see the full picture. Until now, in a major study published this year in the journal Science, a team led by archaeologist Stéphane Rostaing from the French National Center for Scientific Research used LiDAR technology to digitally strip away the tree canopy. What they found underneath was staggering. Not just a collection of scattered villages, but a dense urban network spanning more than 100 square miles. The scans revealed over 6,000 earthen platforms arranged in precise geometric patterns. These were not natural formations. They were the foundations of houses and ceremonial buildings, constructed by a culture that flourished here starting around 500 BC. The platforms measured roughly 40 feet wide and up to 10 feet high, built up from the valley floor to provide dry, stable foundations for wooden structures that have long since rotted away. But the most impressive discovery was the infrastructure. The cities were linked by an intricate network of straight, wide roads. The largest of these highways were 30 feet wide and stretched for miles, cutting through the landscape with a precision that implies central planning. These weren't winding footpaths. They were engineered thoroughfares designed for heavy traffic. Between the settlements, the team found an extensive system of agricultural fields drained by canals and ditches. This allowed the inhabitants to control water flow in a region prone to heavy rainfall, cultivating crops on a scale that could support tens of thousands of people based on the number of platforms. Researchers believe the area was home to at least 10,000 people, possibly as many as 30,000 at its peak. To put that in perspective, this is roughly the same population as Roman London. 2 distinct cultures occupied this region. The Quilombo people first settled the valley around 500 BC, followed later by the Upano culture, which inhabited the sites until around 600 AD for over 1,000 years. They created a built environment that was entirely artificial, a continuous web of homes and farms that blurred the line between urban and rural. The reason these cities remained hidden for so long is simple. Unlike the Maya or the Inca, who left behind stone monuments that survived the centuries, the Upano people built with earth. Mud and soil erode and disappear under jungle growth. Without Lidar, these massive complexes looked like nothing more than natural hills. This discovery proves that complex urbanism was not limited to the Andes or the coast. It extended deep into the tropical lowlands. The Upano Valley was a thriving, engineered landscape where humans had fully mastered their environment. And as scanning technology improves, we're likely to find that this was not an isolated case, but part of a wider network of settlements hidden beneath the canopy, waiting to be discovered. Kazakhstan's Bronze Age industrial superpower for generations, historians taught a specific story about the Eurasian steppe. We assumed it was a highway for nomads, a place where people lived in temporary camps, moving with the seasons to graze their herds. They were masters of the horse, but they didn't build cities. They didn't stay in one place long enough to leave behind anything more than burial mounds. In November 2025, an international team led by Dr. Milana Radovojevic from University College London completely shattered that assumption. The story actually begins decades ago during the Cold War, in the 1960s. Soviet spy satellites were taking high-resolution photos of the Earth, when those images were declassified years later. Archaeologists noticed something strange in northeastern Kazakhstan. On a high plateau overlooking the Ishim River, there were faint geometric shadows in the grass. They looked too organized to be natural this year. Using advanced drones and magnetometry, the team finally revealed the truth. Semiaraka wasn't just a campsite. It was a sprawling Bronze Age metropolis covering nearly 350 acres, roughly 3 times larger than any other site from the same period found in the region. The settlement dates back to around 1600 BC, the same time period as the palaces of Mycenaean Greece and the height of the Shang dynasty in China. But unlike those civilizations who built with stone that lasted, the people of Semiaraka built with earth. That's why their great city remained hidden in plain sight for so long. The scan results were shocking. This wasn't a chaotic collection of tents. It was highly planned. 2 massive rows of rectangular earthen mounds stretched across the terrain, the foundations of permanent multi-room houses arranged in a strict grid. The precision suggests that someone was in charge, organizing the construction before a single structure was built. At the center lies a huge building oriented almost exactly east to west, twice the size of the surrounding homes. Archaeologists believe this was a community meeting hall temple, or palace, but the real game changer was found on the southeastern edge. The soil there was different, littered with debris, slag, broken crucibles, and waste rock. This was an industrial zone. Analysis confirmed the people of Semiaraka were running a massive factory for the production of tin bronze. This is critical because bronze requires 2 ingredients, copper and tin. The copper was locally available, but tin is rare. The nearest major tin sources are in the Altai Mountains hundreds of miles away. This proves Semiaraka was a major hub in a supply chain that stretched across the continent, importing raw materials and exporting finished weapons and tools. This trade network existed more than 1,000 years before the famous Silk Road. The location makes perfect sense. The city sits on a high promontory overlooking the Ishim River, which would have acted like a highway for boats carrying heavy cargo. From their elevated position, the people of Semiaraka could control river traffic, taxing trade or protecting their own shipments. Chemical analysis shows the metalworkers were using a complex method called co-smelting, mixing minerals to create high-quality alloys with up to 12% tin content. This level of consistency suggests a class of professional metallurgists who did nothing else. The pottery found at the site belongs to the Alexavka-Sargari culture. But there's also pottery from the Cherkaskel culture, from the forest regions to the north. This mix suggests Semiaraka was a cosmopolitan city. a meeting place where forest people came to trade with steppe people. One strange detail has sparked debate. While the architecture is massive, the amount of trash and debris is relatively low compared to cities in the Middle East. This has led to a theory that Semiaraka was a seasonal city, swelling with population during summer trade fairs and metal production, then shrinking during the harsh winters. Dr. Radovozic described the site as a true urban hub of the steppe. It forces us to rewrite the history books for Central Asia. It proves that nomadic peoples weren't primitive wanderers who lived in tents because they didn't know how to build walls. They had the knowledge and skill to build massive organized cities whenever they wanted to. At Semiaraka, they decided to stop wandering and build an industrial powerhouse that dominated the region's economy for centuries. Jordan's 2,000-year-old royal burial for over 200 years. Petra has been one of the most visited archaeological sites on Earth. Its defining monument, the Treasury, is a massive facade carved directly into pink sandstone cliffs. For decades, tourists walked across the sandy floor in front of it, assuming the site had been fully explored in late 2024 and early 2025. A team from the American Center of Research, led by Dr. Pierce Paul Kriesman, returned with ground-penetrating radar. They were investigating a theory that there were additional chambers beneath the plaza. The scans revealed strong anomalies. Permission was granted to excavate, a rare occurrence at such a protected site, as the team dug beneath the facade. They uncovered the entrance to a buried tomb. Unlike most tombs in Petra, which were emptied by raiders centuries ago, this chamber was pristine. Inside, archaeologists found the complete skeletal remains of 12 individuals. To understand the significance, we need to understand the Nabateans. They were originally nomadic Arabs who emerged from the desert to control the lucrative incense trade routes of the ancient world. They became wealthy middlemen, transporting frankincense and myrrh from Arabia to Rome and Greece. This wealth allowed them to carve a metropolis out of solid rock. The Nabateans were also masters of water engineering. They carved channels into rock faces to capture flash floods, directing water into massive underground cisterns. This allowed Petra to support 30,000 people in a desert that received only inches of rain per year. The Treasury has always been an architectural puzzle. Its design fuses Hellenistic Greek style with Arabian tradition. The facade features Corinthian columns and Greek mythological figures, but also local symbols. For centuries, scholars debated its function. Was it a temple, a treasury, or a tomb? The excavation revealed the answer. The presence of 12 skeletons buried directly beneath the structure strongly supports the theory that it was built as a royal mausoleum. Among the grave goods, one object stood out. One skeleton was found clutching a ceramic chalice. The shape bore a striking resemblance to the prop used in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, which was filmed at this exact location, while it was actually the top of a broken juglet. Its presence was a notable curiosity given the site's pop culture history, based on pottery analysis. The tomb dates to the reign of King Aretas IV, who ruled from roughly 09 BC to 4080. Aretas was the greatest Nabatean king, presiding over Petra's Golden Age. The condition of the skeletons is scientifically important. Finding complete remains in Petra is rare due to humidity and acidic sandstone, which disintegrates bone. The preservation allows DNA analysis, potentially revealing age, health, diet, and genetic relationships. This discovery confirms the Treasury was an active part of the Nabatean royal necropolis. It proves that even at the world's most famous sites, significant history remains underground, as Dr. Kriesman noted. There is still much to learn about who these 12 people were. DNA results may finally put names to the builders of Petra. AI reads 2,000-year-old scrolls when Mount Vesuvius erupted in 79 AD. It buried the Roman town of Herculaneum under 60 feet of volcanic mud. Unlike Pompeii, which was destroyed by ash, Herculaneum was sealed in an airtight tomb. This unique preservation saved something lost everywhere else in the ancient world: a library in the 18th century. Excavators discovered hundreds of carbonized scrolls in the Villa of the Papyri. These texts had been baked by volcanic heat, turning them into lumps of charcoal. For centuries, scholars tried to open them using knives, mercury, and specialized machines. Almost every attempt ended in disaster. The scrolls crumbled to dust. We possessed the only surviving library from antiquity, but couldn't read it without destroying it. The solution came from particle physics and artificial intelligence. Dr. Brent Seals at the University of Kentucky realized that if you couldn't physically unroll scrolls, you had to unroll them digitally. His team used a particle accelerator to scan scrolls with high-energy X-rays, creating 3D models of the interior. But there was a problem. The ink was carbon-based, and so was the papyrus. On standard X-rays, the ink was invisible. In 2023, Seals launched the Vesuvius Challenge, a global competition offering cash prizes to anyone who could train AI to detect invisible ink. The idea was that ink, even if chemically similar, would leave tiny texture differences that machine learning could detect. The breakthrough stunned the world. A student named Luke Ferreter successfully trained an AI to detect ink, revealing a single word from a sealed scroll, Porphyro's ancient Greek for purple. By early 2024, a team of 3 students won the grand prize by reading entire columns of text. Now in 2025, the technology has moved from proof of concept to production. Dr. Seals is scaling up the process, scanning more scrolls and refining AI to read them faster. The decoded text is a previously unknown philosophical work by Philodemus of Gadara, an Epicurean philosopher who lived in the 1st century BC and was likely the villa's resident scholar. The content gives us an unfiltered window into Roman intellectual life. Philodemus discusses the nature of pleasure, music, and food. He argues against Stoics, debating whether luxury items are inherently good or only good because they're rare. He writes about how senses interact with the mind. One passage reads, as in the case of food, we do not immediately believe that things that are scarce are absolutely more pleasant than those that are abundant. It's a critique of luxury and a defense of finding happiness in simple things. Core Epicurean philosophy. But the implications go far beyond one text. The Villa of the Papyri hasn't been fully excavated. Most of it remains buried under 60 feet of rock. Archaeologists believe the scrolls found so far were just a working library or a collection being packed when the eruption started. The main library, likely containing Latin texts as well as Greek, might still be down there if we find it. We now have proven technology to read it. Think about what that means. We've lost almost all ancient literature. We have only 7 of Sophocles' 120 plays. We've lost entire books of Roman history, scientific works, and poetry. Until the Vesuvius Challenge succeeded, those works seemed gone forever. But Herculaneum offers hope. The carbonization that made scrolls impossible to open also made them immune to rot. They're stable. They're waiting. The goal for 2025 is to read 90% of 4 scanned scrolls, effectively resurrecting lost books from the dead. The eruption of Vesuvius was viewed as tragedy. But in a twist of fate, the volcano saved these books for us. Locking them in a time capsule, we finally figured out how to open. Sphinx and sacred rituals beneath the Mediterranean. If you look across the waters of Abu Qir Bay today, just east of Alexandria, you see nothing but blue Mediterranean. But beneath the surface, lying in the gloom of the seabed, rests one of the most legendary cities of the ancient world. Canopus was the Las Vegas of antiquity. famous for wild festivals and deep mystical piety. A place where pilgrims came to be healed by gods and wealthy Alexandrians came to lose themselves in pleasure. Then, in the 8th century AD, it vanished. The ground liquefied and the entire city slid into the sea. In August 2025, underwater archaeologists announced a discovery that brings the city back to life. During excavation in the submerged temple district, divers uncovered a colossal statue buried in sediment for over a millennium. It was a sphinx carved from quartzite. It's one of the hardest stones in the ancient world. As divers brushed away mud, sunlight caught the stone, revealing a pristine, polished surface that had survived salt water. Remarkably well, the Sphinx bears the royal cartouche of Ramesses II, the most powerful pharaoh of the New Kingdom. Its discovery in a city that peaked during the Ptolemaic period suggests it was an heirloom, a sacred ancestor brought from an older site to lend ancient authority to a new temple. Finding a quartzite statue of this size is incredibly rare. Quartzite requires tools and skills that were lost for centuries. To find one on the seafloor, surrounded by fish and currents, is a haunting reminder of the wealth Canopus once commanded. But the Sphinx wasn't alone. Alongside it, the team recovered ritual artifacts that shed light on the city's most famous event, the mysteries of Osiris. Every year during the month of Koyak, priests from neighboring Thonis Herculaneum would place a statue of Osiris onto a sacred barge. In a torchlit flotilla, they'd sail it down canals to Canopus, simulating the god's journey to the underworld. The artifacts provide first physical evidence of specific rituals. Divers retrieved ceremonial ladles made of bronze and silver used to pour libations. They found offering tables with petrified remains. Most intriguingly, Osiris bedstone or gold molds shaped like the god. During festivals, priests filled these with soil and grain, watering them until grain sprouted, creating a living green image of Osiris, a powerful symbol of life rising from death. Finding these delicate objects in a sunken city's wreckage is miraculous. It allows us to reconstruct the sensory experience, incense heavy in the air, cymbals rattling, thousands of pilgrims lining canals waiting for the god to pass. Canopus was destroyed by liquefaction. The city was built on soft, unstable Nile Delta clay. When a massive earthquake struck in the 8th century, solid ground turned into slurry. Heavy stone temples and statues sank into mud, dragging the city down. The Sphinx was found toppled on its side, half buried in chaotic debris, suggesting sudden catastrophe. It wasn't carefully buried. It was thrown down by earth itself. The liquid mud that swallowed the city also sealed it, protecting stone from erosion and looting. The artifacts are undergoing desalination in Alexandria labs before joining the Grand Egyptian Museum. But their true home will always be the twilight world of Abu Qir Bay, where the rest of Canopus sleeps, waiting for the next dive. DNA reveals a lost people for decades. The story of how humans populated the Americas seems straightforward. After crossing the Bering Land Bridge, people spread rapidly from north to south, branching into indigenous groups we know today. In November 2025, a study published in Nature revealed the family tree is far more complex and tragic than we realized. A massive international team led by Javier Mapelli Lopez from Harvard University analyzed DNA from 238 ancient individuals from Argentina, Chile, and Brazil, spanning 10,000 years. As they sequenced genomes, they found something that shouldn't be there, hidden within genetic code from the Pampas region of central Argentina was a distinct DNA signature matching no known modern indigenous group. It was a ghost lineage, a branch that had split off thousands of years ago and evolved in complete isolation. The Pampas is vast, fertile grassland across central Argentina. Usually when populations live in accessible landscape, they mix. Genes flow like water. But this ghost population remained separate. They appear in the record around 8,500 years ago and persist until roughly 1,000 years ago. For nearly 5,000 years, longer than ancient Egypt's history, they maintained genetic distinctiveness that's almost unheard of. Archaeology reveals who they were. They were highly adapted hunter-gatherers. Early on, they lived alongside Ice Age megafauna. We found their distinctive fishtail projectile points with bones of giant ground sloths, around 6,000 years ago. The climate shifted. The mid-Holocene aridity made the region harsh. Megafauna vanished. Many groups abandoned the interior, but the ghost lineage stayed. They adapted, shifting diet to guanaco wild llama, relative, and rhea, large flightless bird. They developed Boleodora's weighted stones connected by cords thrown to entangle running animals' legs. These polished spheres appear in their graves. They bury dead with extraordinary care. Sites show complex burials where bones were painted with red ochre. Some practiced secondary burial where bodies decomposed before bones were cleaned, bundled, and reburied communally. This suggests deep ancestral reverence and complex afterlife rituals, yet they remained isolated. Genetic data shows almost zero intermarriage with Andean or forest peoples to the north. For 5,000 years, they lived in their own world, separated not by mountains or oceans, but by some invisible cultural barrier we don't understand. Then, around 1,000 years ago, the signal vanishes. The genetic lineage disappears. In centuries before Europeans arrived, the population changes dramatically. New genetic markers from Andes and Amazon appear, suggesting waves of migration that replaced or absorbed the ghost people by the time Spanish arrived in the 16th century. People they encountered were genetically different from ancient inhabitants who'd hunted ground sloths. What happened? The timing coincides with the medieval warm period, when climate change might have allowed expanding populations to push into grasslands. They may have been overwhelmed by disease, pushed out by invaders, or absorbed so completely their genetic signal diluted into nothingness. The disappearance adds haunting notes to American history. Entire peoples with their own languages, songs, creation myths, and memories vanished without leaving traces in history books. We don't know what they called themselves. We don't know what language they spoke. We only know they existed because of DNA fragments in bone dust. This discovery challenges single-wave migration theory. It implies settlement was much more dynamic, with groups splitting, isolating, thriving, and sometimes dying out entirely. They're the lost people of the Pampas. And as we sequence more ancient genomes, we'll likely find more of these ghosts. Two discoveries reveal our ancient cousins for decades. We've known Homo sapiens didn't emerge in a vacuum. Our history is shared with other human species. Neanderthals in Europe, Denisovans in Asia. But until 2025, many cousins remained abstract names or ghosts in DNA. This year, two discoveries gave faces to shadowy figures. The first centers on a fossil with a remarkable journey. In 1933, a Chinese laborer found a massive fossilized skull in the Songhua River near Harbin. Recognizing it was significant, but knowing occupying Japanese forces would seize it, he wrapped it in cloth and hid it at the bottom of a well. It stayed there, submerged, for nearly 90 years. Before he died, he told family about the treasure. They recovered it and donated it to science. The Harbin cranium is huge, larger than modern human skulls, with thick brow ridges, wide face, and square eye sockets. It held a brain our size, but its architecture was archaic, built for brutal physical demands. In 2025, comprehensive analysis confirmed this isn't robust Homo sapiens or Eastern Neanderthal. It's a distinct species, Homo longi, dragon man. The shock came from dating and protein analysis. Dragon Man lived at least 146,000 years ago during a deep ice age. This places a massive, big-brained human species in one of Earth's harshest environments, while our ancestors were largely confined to Africa, based on skull dimensions. Scientists estimate these humans were extremely robust, adapted for deep cold and immense exertion. They didn't just survive Siberian winters. They thrived, hunting mammoths and woolly rhinos. The genetic bombshell. Dragon Man is likely the species we've known only as Denisovans. Until now, Denisovans were defined almost entirely by genetics. Known from a finger bone, few teeth, and DNA fragments from a Siberian cave, we knew they interbred with us. We knew they gave Tibetans high-altitude survival genes. But we had no idea what they looked like. If Dragon Man is Denisovan, the fossil record finally caught up with genetics. We can look into the face of the species that ruled Eastern Asia for hundreds of thousands of years. A face undeniably human but distinct. Parallel evolution mirroring our own in intelligence but diverging in form. While Dragon Man clarifies recent cousins. A Spanish discovery pushes European settlement timelines back. At Cima del Elefante in Atapuerca Mountains, archaeologists unearthed a human face, fragment maxilla, and cheekbone, dating 1.2 to 1.4 million years old. This is the oldest human face ever found in Europe. Consensus was humans didn't reach Western Europe until much later. The continent was colder, filled with predators, thought to be a fortress only later more advanced humans could breach. This fossil proves a pioneering species, likely Homo antecessor. Walked to the Atlantic over 1 million years ago. The fragment is small, but its morphology is significant. It shows a surprisingly modern face. Unlike heavy protruding ape faces or some later human ancestors, this individual had a flatter, more vertical profile. It suggests facial features we consider unique to Homo sapiens emerged very early, appearing in ancient pioneers long before our species existed. Combining these finds creates a richer picture of the past. It reinforces that 100,000 years ago, the world was a tapestry of human forms. A traveler from Africa to Asia would encounter diverse characters, us in Africa. Stocky Neanderthals in Europe. Massive cold-adapted dragon men in Asia. Tiny Homo floresiensis on Indonesian islands. They weren't just biological curiosities. They were people. They made tools, controlled fire, likely had languages and names. They looked at the same stars and felt the same cold. DNA tells us we didn't avoid them. We met, fought, traded, and mated with them. The tragedy is they're all gone. We're the last ones standing. We don't know exactly why. Did we outcompete them? Bring diseases? Or did changing climate push them over the edge? Now we're the only voice left, using science to reconstruct stories of cousins who didn't make it. 2025 has shown us that the past is not static. It changes every time we turn on a Lidar scanner, run a DNA sequence, or decode a scroll with artificial intelligence, from the ghost lineages of South America to Dragon Man's face in China. From the sunken temples of Canopus to the industrial superpower of Semiaraka. From Petra's hidden tomb to Herculaneum's resurrected library. Each discovery proves we've only scratched the surface. The Earth is full of lost cities. The oceans hold lost ships. Our archives contain lost words. But archaeology is a field that changes every day. We know discoveries are happening right now that didn't make this list, because they haven't been announced yet, so we want to hear from you. Did we miss a major find that captured your imagination this year? Is there a local discovery in your part of the world that deserves attention? Let us know in the comments. The gateway between past and present opens a little wider every year. As technology improves, as methods refine, as new questions get asked, we peel back layers of mystery that have hidden truth for millennia. These 7 discoveries are just the beginning. Somewhere beneath jungle canopy, another city waits. Somewhere in museum storage, another mislabeled artifact holds secrets. Somewhere in ancient DNA, another ghost lineage is waiting to be found. The past isn't settled. It's still being discovered. And the most important finds might be the ones that challenge everything. We think we know. If you enjoyed this journey through 2025's greatest archaeological breakthroughs, make sure to subscribe to Mystic Gateways. We explore these mysteries every week, crossing the thresholds between known and unknown. Thanks for watching. Until next time, stay curious. The gateways are opening.